and welcome back to the Noise Filter podcast. This week we have Ben Garnett. How are you doing, Ben? You alright?
Hi Dan, I'm very well, thank you. Cheers for having me.
Yeah, could you tell all the people what you do and describe a little bit about your music?
What I do, I've been dreading this question for days. As any musician will tell you, that to describe their sound or their thing is like the thing they dread.
Yeah.
So I am, as I've said, I'm a musician. I do a kind of solo project between me and my laptop, who I've named Bill. It's not a solo project; it's a band because I can't handle the nerves of being out there on my own. So I call it a band. It's called the Organ Grinders Monkey.
Yeah.
So it's me and Bill. I'd like to say I'm a professional musician, and but I'm not. It's a hobby thing. It's always been a hobby, and it will never reach the level of self-sustainability or even something I do that much, because I'm too slow and methodical in everything I do. But it's an attempt to kind of. I write a lot of songs. I'm happy just at home on my own. I'm never happier than when I'm at home just recording, but you need to get those songs out there and get them heard. So the last kind of 5+ years has been kind of an experiment in trying to get that out live as a solo performer or a duo.
Yeah.
Because I've been in bands, in a band before, and it's coming from that and doing it on your own and trying to use technology in a way that kind of makes it interesting and engaging and covers as many of my flaws as I possibly can, because I'd like to say I'm talented, but I know that I don't have the best voice in the world. I'm not a genius guitarist, but I think I have good ideas.
Yeah.
And it's trying to get those good song ideas into a format where they can work live, and I can go out and perform that, and people can hear my music. I'm not just chucking it online. As much as the digital world has just exploded lately, in the last 10 years. When you put stuff online, you just chuck it up there, and it's like no one's ever going to hear it. You do have to still engage. Yeah. In the physical world. So I'm very much aware that for people to hear all this stuff that I'm spending hours and hours doing, there does need to be a real world aspect to it as well. So.
A live component, yeah.
Mm.
Do you think that when you're sort of like making songs, is that do you make it with the live component in mind, or how I'm going to do this? Is it done in the studio? Do you go like, okay, I'm going to have to like think, because obviously I've watched your videos and it's massively complicated how you do it live. Is that, do you sort of go, I'm going to write a song and then work out how to play it live, or do you sort of work out what you want to do?
It has been both. So over that what you've described there has been absolutely part of the whole learning process. So I originally I started this whole thing when my previous band, Colonel Bastard, when we kind of broke up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you'll remember them from, obviously we grew up in Liscard together, and we went to school. We all had bands, and we'd play at the Barley in the Fountain and all that. And we kind of broke up when we all went to uni, but reconvened again in Cambridge. When I met up again with Chris and Martin, we were all living there, and we kind of had a good couple of years in Cambridge, gigging and playing. Again, just kind of local band thing. Never got onto a sort of a footing of touring and stuff, but we had a good kind of setup there.
Yeah.
And then that kind of broke up when Chris's job took him abroad, and there was never really any plan to kind of carry on. Martin formed another band. I didn't fancy the idea of forming another band. I didn't want to be in a band that wasn't with my friends.
Yeah.
So I just sort of sat down. I had a load of songs left over from that period. So I just thought, I'm just going to sit down, finish all these songs, see what comes of it.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called the RPM challenge, which is where you record an album in a month. Very similar to one of your other videos I watched with the guy talking about how you write a book, your author chat.
Yes.
So writing the book. So it's about just like getting all your ideas down. And I had kind of half-finished ideas, which is kind of cheating because you're meant to do it all just in a month. And so I just sat down, recorded all my songs that we had left over. And then at that point, I didn't really have any idea of how I was going to do it live, because I didn't have the equipment available. I didn't have, I didn't want to get up and be a solo singer-songwriter, because I don't have the chops for that. And I just kind of, I had all these songs. The all there and finished, and then it was just kind of a slow process of working out how to do it live. And so the original set of songs, it was almost that thing of, well, I'll go out and I'll kind of play over a backing track, and it'll be a bit kind of cheating.
Yeah.
But I'll work out ways of making it happen live. So maybe I'll have a drum track, maybe I'll loop guitars live as I do it.
Yeah.
Now, because I've been through that whole process, now when I sit down and write a song, it's like, right, how is this going to happen live?
Yeah.
And I will have pre-programmed drum beats, but everything else will be, I've learned sort of loads of different software and tech and gear that I can use to kind of make as much of it happen on the fly as possible.
Yeah.
But still be kind of flexible, because I love artists who use loopers, but sometimes it gets like stuck in like a 4-bar, or they set up their loop at the start of the song.
Yeah.
So they'll hit a drum or they'll do a thing, and then you're locked into that. So the way I do it, I run everything through my computer, through the laptop.
Yeah.
So I've got this sort of wicked big audio interface which has got loads of inputs and outputs. I run that through a sequencer live, and then I use a MIDI foot pedal to kind of record my voice and my guitar in. I can loop parts as I do them and play them back, and then I can also sync that up to pre-recorded beats, things that because I didn't want like a live drummer, although it's something I might incorporate in the future. But
it would be good. That would be really cool for you.
You miss that. I don't think you can ever replicate the sound of a live drummer doing this thing. Just the power that comes from that.
Yeah.
But I do. I program stuff that's weird and kind of glitchy.
Yeah.
So that's always kind of the backbone of the track, and then I build stuff on top of that. So there's always going to be probably always going to be a little pre-recorded element to it, but as much as I can do live, I will.
Yeah.
And then I'll record stuff, and then that gives you the challenge later. I'll do a song live now first before I record it, because I learned that if I sit down and record a bunch of songs, it's a real challenge working out how to make that happen live.
Yeah.
So now I always come at it the other way. I'll do a demo, and I'll be doing the demo with the looping software and with everything else, and making that, planning it all out that way. And then I have the challenge of right, how is that going to go on like a record? If I want to put that out on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, or do a CD that I sell at gigs, how's that going to work?
Does that contrast quite a lot to how do you sort of use the opportunity of recording to sort of flesh things out a bit, or are you quite true to your live sound?
Again, it's both. So originally, I think you have with every band or artist. I think every band or artist has this decision to make.
Yeah.
And it's something which I think our mutual friend Matt Arundel, who's a bit of always been a bit of a mentor to kind of musicians in Cornwall, he calls the rules. Yeah. And whether you decide it deliberately, consciously or not, every band. So in our old band, Colonel Bastard, I mean, we were a 4-piece indie band. So we had drums, guitars, vocals, sometimes keyboards. You go in a room together and you work out these songs, and then you go in the studio and you try and make them sound as good as you can. Yeah. And then you make a decision. At some point there, it's like, do we start recording extra parts? Yeah. If we record those extra parts, how are we going to do them live? Are we going to get somebody else in? Is the recorded sound going to be exactly what we do live, or are we going to kind of have an expanded sound on record and then a stripped down live sound? Yeah. I think most bands, to begin with, they're quite pure about that. They want the live energy, that on tape or or whatever medium. But obviously bands kind of you feel the limitation of that after time, and you want to expand your sound and add things, and then you have the challenge of how do we do that live? Yeah. You see that with big bands as well. You see bands adding extra members. Yeah, for sure. It's like, or using backing, and then it's like, when do those members become official members of the band? Yeah. Do they then go back in the studio? And it's always kind of like a challenge like that. So my sort of how my process has gone. So I originally had, like I said, all these songs where I hadn't thought about it. So I was putting 5 guitar overdubs, walls of harmonies, and all that, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, right, I need to make this live. How am I going to get 5 more bends to come out? Okay, so I used some backing tracks, and it did feel like cheating. So I didn't want to be one of those. I'm not a purist. I'll use the technology. I don't use amps or anything. Like I said, everything goes through the laptop and is done through software. So even my guitar, I plug it in the front of the laptop, it goes into the sequencer. I use an amp sim, which to most guitarists would be like absolute, oh my god, that's horrible, and I need my tone, I need my sound.
Yeah.
So everything goes to that. So I've got options from that point of view, and I can make stuff happen live, but with where in the past where I'd rely on the backing tracks quite a lot, I've tried to reduce that down as much as I can. So like my sort of rules, which I didn't sit down and write a list of rules. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But what it kind of generally is, so I do, like I said, I do a kind of, it is a kind of a singer-songwriter thing, but I try to use as many electronic elements and kind of weirdness as I can. So generally my kind of rules are, okay, I'll have drum backing tracks, but they won't be something that a live drummer could play. Yeah. So, it's not,
sort of glitchy stuff and...
yeah, it's got to work on its own. There'll be bass parts as well, pre-programmed. But I won't have backing vocals live. Maybe just one. Yeah. If I want to do a harmony part, I won't have loads of lead guitars coming off everywhere, and because that would just be. It's just nobody wants to see a person standing there strumming a guitar and singing, and all these other parts coming out, because it just doesn't engage with an audience. So, like I said, I've used the technology to work out ways where I can layer stuff up live, but I can layer it up over a skeleton of a song that's sort of already there. Yeah. I've lost my train of thought now. What was the question?
I've also forgotten the question. I don't know. That's like the best thing to say to somebody. What was the question?
What was the question?
I don't know.
I think yeah. So you talk about how much. So I'm trying to get to a point now where what I record is what I do live.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Almost 100%. Without cheating. Yeah. And without kind of using too much of that sort of backing elements and again that kind of informs the process where, so when I sit down and write something, it's like, okay, I'll have a drum beat, I'll record this, I'll play and sing this bit of guitar that will loop, from my pedal. That I can control the pedal to control the looper. Yeah. I'll start playing another bit guitar. I'll build up a track. I'll have another pedal which mutes something, so I can create structure by muting parts in and out. Yeah. Lately, I've got this really cool plugin which have you ever heard of like a MIDI guitar? So a guitar where it has a pickup on it where it converts the audio
into sort of
signal into MIDI, so you can drive sort of virtual instruments and have other sounds coming out of the guitar. I discovered this brilliant bit of software that does that. So I can send my guitar signal into the computer and send the notes to different instruments. Wow. So I've started using that on the bass. I don't know if you watched, there's a video to a song I've done.
Yeah, so you play the high strings and it does like, it triggers a bass,
Yeah, or I can hit just the bottom string, because it doesn't track that well. Right. You can't play anything too quick on it, because it just doesn't pick up the notes. But I can send out the bottom string, so that when I hit that, it plays the guitar and it also triggers a bass synth. Yeah. So I can loop that, have a little bass line going in the background, and then play guitar over the top. So there's all kinds of little technological tricks that you can do, and I've kind of learned the software over the years where the ultimate aim obviously would be to create everything on the fly. Yeah. But I'm not a drummer. I'm not somebody who's going to stand there on some drum pads and and that creates an element of boredom itself. Like, it's technologically and technically impressive to see somebody build up a track from nothing. Yeah. But I've watched looping artists on live where somebody, they've got 5 microphones, they do a shaker over here, they go over here and do some hand claps, they play a bit of guitar. The song doesn't start for a minute and a half.
Every song.
So every song starts with this slow build. And when I started this, I was like, that's one of the things I want to avoid. I want to be able to have, because a looping artist can't do what a band can do and all come in at the same time, have an impact on, you want to do an opening song where you all go, pow, and it all happens. So I was like, well, if I run stuff through the computer, I can have that happen, because I can have some pre-programmed stuff, but I can also have the stuff that builds. Yeah. And I can create, light and shade. Things can come in and out. Yeah. Some sort of dynamics and stuff. Some sort of structure. So I'm not locked into, every song starting the same. Yeah. So I've got various kind of like sort of tricks and things that I can either build a track, or I can have the impact of, not a band, but I I can have immediacy as well as stuff that builds. So that was, and I do other things. So like I have a lot of. I mean, obviously you've played live a lot. Usually when you play live, everything's set up. The sound man puts a microphone on everything, sends that sound to the front, and then you get a feedback monitor so you can hear what you're doing. I don't use that at all because I've got everything in the laptop. I can just plug a set of headphones into my audio interface. Have that going straight into some in-ear headphones, and I can hear. So I can have a click track going in the background. Okay. So I can have everything drop out. So it's just me singing and playing or whatever, or doing some riffs, and then I can hit a pedal and everything comes back in again. So you can everything's synced up.
I had a question about that because you know on the song where you do up down left right that guy was like, so you do I won't pretend people know what I'm talking about. You do a song and then at the towards the end part I assume you've given a guy a controller.
An Xbox controller.
Xbox controller, and then they can manipulate the sound. Well,
yeah.
So the one I watched, he is like just completely.
He's mashing it.
He's mashed the shit out of your song, and like I just thought, how do you play? How do you play to it? And that's how you do it.
So that was kind of an idea I had where part of again I'm sort of explain that whole process again. So obviously part of being a kind of electronic solo artist is that you want to have an interaction with your audience, obviously, and like obviously one of the things I didn't want to be was a guy sitting behind a laptop.
No,
you see I've gone to a lot of kind of weird music nights, and you see sort of like these electronic guys, and they're behind that. The joke is always checking his email. You've got all this amazing sound coming out, but you don't know what they're doing.
No,
which is why when I did this, I always wanted to be upfront. Guitar, singing. Yeah. Combine that with the technology, so it's a performance, and there's the technological aspect as well.
Yeah.
So it's not, the audience needs to see what you're doing. They need to see where the sounds are coming from. He's hit his guitar, it's done that. He's touched a pedal, another sound has come out. There's that visual connection, which obviously is there with a band always, because you can see what people are doing. Oh, that guy's doing a good solo. That guy's doing that. When you start using a computer and it's all kind of invisible, it's like a black box which the audience can't see into.
No.
Which is why I got this awesome piece of equipment. This is a soft step MIDI pedal. So this is what drives everything that happens on the computer.
Okay.
I have that on the floor. I trigger all my loops. I mute, and I can control everything that's happening on bill as the set goes along. So there's that kind of connection, and then I started thinking about kind of. How can I push that even further? How can I use kind of almost gimmicks? To kind of draw the audience in. When you're in a band, there's always that connection with the audience. You get a lot of bands that, you can sing along with this song, and you have things drop out, and there's a natural kind of, and you have that as well. Obviously you're a front man, and you build that kind of connection with your audience.
Yeah.
When I'm kind of standing there on stage, I'm staring at my pedal, I'm triggering things, I've got my in-ear headphones in, so I can't see what's going on. There is a little bit of a disconnect there, and it's trying to break that down. So I had this idea of like, what if I made one of my songs like a computer game?
Yeah.
What this pedal does, you can make anything else do that. So I've got that Xbox controller that just plugs in. It sends MIDI signals which can control things.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what if somebody kind of did like a live remix of one of my songs? Yeah. And it was like right. I'm sure it's possible. I've seen other artists doing clever things with sound and using effects to. There's this guy. I sent you a link. This guy, Tim Exile.
Yeah.
So he uses, and he's a bit of a computer genius because he uses he writes plugins.
Right.
He writes sort of software. He wrote this thing that it can do an effect every time you press a button.
Okay.
So you run audio through this effect. You send the computer the MIDI signals to it, and every time you press a button, it will trigger an effect. Each button triggers a different effect. And I thought that's really good. I could put that on my entire mix. So the entire sound that's coming out of the speakers. Yeah. And I can just have someone, absolutely fuck with it. So I bought the plugin that he wrote stuff for a company called Native Instruments, and there's a plugin called The Finger. Nice. And that's what controls it. So I have, and it's really, again, I'm getting into techie stuff here, and
that's all right.
I'm being boring. But obviously, I send when I play live, obviously for the sound guy to mix it, I send several signals out the back of my laptop, out of the audio interface. So there's drums, guitars.
Oh, okay.
light guitars,
So you give him you give him like a band setup almost.
I give him a separate feed so he can mix it for the room, because I can mix it at home, but it will sound different.
Yeah.
With every venue, so you need to give the sound man that control.
Yeah.
So I have the finger. 5 instances of it over all those outputs, all being controlled by one MIDI controller, which is hooked up to this.
Yeah.
Which is the Xbox controller.
Very nice.
It's an Xbox controller for Windows. Obviously, it's not a standard Xbox controller. It's got a USB connection.
Yeah.
And at the start of the song, so I explain. I say, okay, this is a bit of audience interaction. People groan because they think, oh, he's going to get us to sing along with this stupid song. And I say, it's not that. And I give a little demo at the start. I say, this is the remix. And then I started glitching my voice up and doing like this stupid stuff. And then I say, who wants to take this controller and remix this song? And people go, hands in their pockets. So, but there's always, I always ask one person beforehand, hey, would you be happy to do this? Just in case nobody puts their hands up. Because that's awkward. Like, who wants to have a go at this?
Not anyone.
Okay, I've lost the crowd. So, and I give it to someone, and it's disabled at the start of the song. So it's
they can't ruin it.
Yeah, so they can't mess up the whole track, because that would be pointless.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same. I've got it. Yeah, obviously on the computer, it's kind of automated so that it doesn't work. When we hit a certain point, I kind of give them a nod, and then they go mental, and they remix it.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, because I have the in-ear headphones, that has the unaffected signal going straight to my head, so I can play along. All I'm hearing is tick tock tock tock.
Right.
Tock.
Okay.
I'm hearing the beat. I'm hearing the instruments as they sound.
Yeah.
And it's only the outputs that gets sent to the sound man, to the mixing desk, and the
because it was
people here.
He ruined it, didn't he? Not ruined it, but he it was I couldn't work out how you were playing to it. It was like unplayable too, wasn't it?
And that is absolutely the plan. I deliberately did it on the catchiest song I'd ever written. So it's based on to go with the theme, it's based on the music from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes, I got it.
So the Green Hill Zone, and I just wrote a chorus that goes with it. That's like, it's all about giving up control, or giving up control like in a relationship. And then I literally give control to somebody in the audience. So you get to the last chorus and then the solo at the end, and then they get to kind of go nuts. And the effects, they're not just things like, originally it was just stuff like distortion. Put a bit of distortion, put a bit of a filter on that, so it goes those kind of things. And I was like, that's not interesting enough.
That's not fun enough. That's not dangerous enough.
So it does absolutely. It destroys the song completely. So you get these stutter effects because it's working. I thought originally maybe I just have it work on the guitar or my voice, so like it's doing effects of that. Nah, it's got to be the whole,
all of it,
the whole song. The whole song just gets like completely ruined. And it was a funny idea, and it was a great idea when I did it. It was kind of gimmicky, but now I've kind of made a rod for my own back with that, because I think people expect that song to happen every time I do a gig now, and every time I get reviewed, it's the one that people kind of write about. Like, he gives the control to the audience, and this happens. It's like, right, now I need to come up. I need to come
a new idea,
a new idea that I can use. Or I need to kind of carefully drop that. Not that it's, because it is brilliant, and people, I've got the headphones on, and I can kind of hear what's coming out the speakers, and it's going crazy. Yeah. And I kind of look up as I'm playing the guitar, and people are just laughing, and they're just going, what is going on here? And I'm like, yes, perfect.
It's worked.
if only every song can be that reaction. So it's trying to find different kind of tricks that will, will
do that.
Will do that.
One of the things that you sent over was some of the things that you are inspired by, and some of the music that kind of makes sort of helps influence you. I think one of the guys, was it Thomas?
Yes.
Truax with the
Truax
with the spinning. That's really interesting. That's really.
He is one of my all-time heroes. And again, when I was working out how to do this whole solo thing, obviously I've got my original influences and influences from our band, the Britpop stuff. Yeah. We were kind of an indie rock kind of Britpop band, and then the electronic kind of influences that I kind of came across later on, these sort of glitchy kind of Aphex Twin square pusher type stuff that I'm trying to smush together. Yeah. From a live point of view, it was all about trying to find people who do the solo thing, but have a slight weirdness or oddness about them. Or, like I said, I could never be an acoustic singer
I think you do. I think you do yourself a disservice, but yeah, I know what you mean.
To do that well, you have to have like an amazing voice, brilliant guitar playing, amazing lyrics, and all that. And where I've got some good ideas, I don't think my material will be best served by me just bashing it out on acoustic guitar, so it wouldn't be that interesting. So there are a few people who I've mercilessly kind of ripped off, who are kind of like my live musical heroes. And Thomas Truax is kind of he's like number one on that. If you ever get the chance to see him, just go.
Yeah.
He tours the UK. Like, I don't know how much he comes down to the Southwest. I don't know if he's a very kind of, I don't want to do him a disservice, but he plays the small gig circuit, and he's got a good thing going there. He's from America. He comes over sort of, I don't know, he actually might live here now. I'm not sure, but he used to come over sort of 2 times a year, do a tour. I used to live in Cambridge. He comes to Cambridge and Brighton sort of all the time. Yeah. So I've probably seen him about, in the last 10 years, I've probably seen him about at least 15 times.
Wow.
So he does this thing, and again, I've kind of ripped off a lot of the elements from his live set, so I'm going to kind of expose myself here. But what he does, he was one of the first artists I saw that does looping and does it well. So he's got a hardware pedal, one of these boomerang things where you hit the pedal, you play a bit, that records, you hit the pedal again, sound comes out, you carry on. Basically what I do in the software, he does that on the hardware. Yeah. But he's also got a whole set of instruments that he's invented and built himself.
Yeah.
And his whole live stage show, he's like Elvis gone wrong. So it's got this kind of 50s rockabilly sort of vibe, crossed with just like a mad scientist. So he's got a drum machine made out of old bicycle parts.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
A physical drum machine, so it spins round, and he'll stand behind it and kind of pull all the spokes out, and he'll sort of spin it, and then it will do the right beat, and then he'll set it going, and it will sort of do a beat, and he'll play acoustic guitar over that. He's got this thing called the Hornicator, which is an old gramophone horn. It's got a microphone on the inside. He's got a little light over his eye, and he bashes on it, and he bashes out a beat. So he hits it with his fist and his ring, so it goes bonk, bonk, and he'll build up a loop on the looper, and then he'll sing into it and sing over it, and it's got this weird kind of eerie, dark, humorous vibe. I mean, he's clearly like a lovely guy, but he's got this kind of like dark undercurrent to what he does. He did an album called the Songs from the Films of David Lynch, which was like a perfect for what he does, because that's this whole vibe. It's kind of dark and humorous and a bit odd. And the first time I ever saw him play live was that was in Cambridge, and I saw him. The first song he did this Hornicator, and it was like pitch black. He's on the stage. You hear this kind of clicking coming out. He turns the light on, and you can just see his eye, and then he just starts going. And he builds up all these odd voices, and then he starts singing this song, which is called "Prove to My Daughter That You Love Her," and it's all about how he's he's got all these suitors for his daughter, and he when it gets to the chorus, he's just pointing at people in the audience, going, "Prove to my daughter that you love her. Prove to my daughter." And it was the most. I was like, yes. This is,
you're a genius.
It's not like anything I've ever seen before, and his shows are always just so insane. He's got this ramshackle element to what he does, where because he's got all these instruments and he's kind of dashing back and forth. He doesn't have a set list. He just goes, "Oh, what am I going to do now? I'll do this." And he talks before the songs, and he's very funny and engaging, and he's just amazing. And he's these instruments, they have their own characters as well, and it's all stuff that sounds really gimmicky and naff, and in the wrong hands it would come off like really like ugh. But he's just got such a charm about him, and such an inventive, just amazing performer that it works. And he's created his own world. He sends his emails from this fictional place called Wow Town, and it's just like you always hear that the best artists are ones who created their own world. Like they've got their own kind of lyrical kind of world, and he's got that physically. So he refers to his instruments and he talks to them. And I remember that, again, at that first gig, he was like, "Well, we've been on the road for a few weeks now," and I assumed he was talking about, I don't know, maybe he was on the road with friends or his tour manager. No, he was just talking about these instruments that he packs up in a suitcase and goes around, and he writes from the Twitter feed as the Hornicator, and it's just brilliant. It's just amazing. And I thought, well,
I like that.
I'm going to nick some of that. So, so this is why I've got Bill, my laptop, so I don't have to get on stage on my own. I talk to Bill, and we have this difficult relationship where he messes things up and stuff goes wrong. I have a song called "Everything I Do Goes Wrong," which deliberately messes up, so people don't know. Hopefully, if it's part of the act or part of and that shields me as well, because if stuff does go wrong, it's like, oh,
Bill,
you messed up, you know.
Yeah,
I'm pressing the wrong buttons on the keyboard, playing, you know, playing all the. Come on, dude, sort it out. You know?
Yeah, up your game.
I like to think of myself, and this is kind of being a bit big-headed. It's doing kind of the high-tech version of what Thomas Truax does. But
Yeah,
I'm nothing like that level of, you know, genius and stuff. But it's, you know, it's something I'm kind of building towards. So he is just a massive influence. And like I said, if you ever get the chance to see him live, it's such a unique experience. Just go and see him, because he's amazing.
I love the idea of this like bespoke kind of way of generating music and having that kind of like immersive environment to like just fall into. Like all of my favorite people that do music are sort of like that, have this like thing that you can just sort of you can fall into.
You lose yourself in their world.
Yeah, that's really lovely. So what in what ways have, I suppose there's probably lots of different styles of music that kind of make up your sound. Is there anything else that kind of maybe some unexpected things that kind of influence you, or is there?
I don't know, I'm looking at my document now. I wrote a little thing before we came on, where I was going to kind of make notes of all the stuff I've talked about, and I've ruined it because I've done it all in the wrong order now. Like I said, so with Colonel Bastard, our band from school, we had the classic kind of you're always really kind of big-headed when you're young, and you're like, oh, we're going to be this. We kind of fancied ourselves as kind of, you know, we love the Britpop kind of stuff. We sort of fancied ourselves as, you know, the classic kind of songwriting lineage of the Beatles, the Kinks, Bowie. Yeah. Madness, Blur, you know, kind of continuing that kind of classic English, you know, humorless. I was about to say humor-based, but you know, bit clever. You know, there are other bands that influenced us. Martin from Colonel Bastard, he's a genius songwriter. He's very influenced by kind of XTC, Talking Heads, Sparks, kind of some of the American kind of art rock stuff, a bit post-punk and that kind of thing. So that was kind of always the core of. That, you know, that's where I know music from, is you know, and obviously the stuff that my dad used to play me, sort of Hendrix and, you know, other sort of 60s acts. So it's always what I do is always come from a direction of songwriting. Yeah, you know. But like I said, when I decided to do the solo thing, I didn't want it to just be that, and I kind of had a obviously when Colonel Bastard broke up, because we recorded everything we did, absolutely everything. So we were one of those bands, you know this, that any creative person, that the real fear is having an idea and losing it. Yes. So when you get in a room and you all play together, you do something amazing, you come back the next week and you're like, what was that? What are you doing? Was that right? And it doesn't sound as good. You don't know if it's just because you're not you know, you're doing it, but it's not as good as it's not actually as good as you thought it was, or you're doing all the wrong things. And so the way we worked was that myself and Martin, who are the main songwriter, we basically recorded everything. Yeah. So we made, you know, again, we were lucky, we're at the age where sort of computer recording was just coming in. So we all had kind of computers at home. We would do silly little demos at home, work the song out, bring it to the band and go, this is how the song goes. You know, so we'd never lose that. We'd never lose an idea, and because that's the worst thing. That's the ultimate fear, isn't it? You know, you sit with your guitar and you record something, and then you go down the shops and you come back and like, it's gone. Oh shit! I know what the word I had was. I know what the chords I was doing was, but why isn't that? You know, it's absolutely the worst thing. So we recorded absolutely everything we did, and that was part of our process. And again, going back to kind of talking about the rules and the way of making your songs work, the demos I recorded started getting more and more kind of advanced. So obviously, when you're a band, everything you do is filtered through your lineup. So, you know, your drums, a couple of guitars, blah, blah. So I was doing stuff I was starting to do kind of weird effects on things, and, you know, chopping stuff up and moving it around on the computer and making these kind of weird recordings, which by the time we would sort of play it live and then go and record it sort of in a studio. I was quite lucky that my dad's got a kind of a project home studio. We could go around there and record stuff. Yeah. You get something that sounds great at the end, and I go back and listen to the demo and go, oh, I really liked that there was this and that, and, you know, all these elements that kind of, and that's quite again, like a famous thing with people who make music, that the concept of demoitis.
Demoitis, I was going to say it. Yeah.
Fall in love with your demo recordings, and then you try and recreate some of that energy, but you can't, because it's just there. It's that spark of creativity that you've got.
Yeah.
By the time you've done it in a bit more of a high end studio, or you've gone somewhere and you've got a producer to look at it, and you've made it all sound great, and it becomes a great thing, you hope, but it's never what it was.
No.
And there's that, and I wouldn't say frustrated, but increasingly the stuff I was doing with my demos, we were getting to the point where we were playing a lot more of Martin's songs than mine, because mine were too complicated and weird, and they were kind of, and that was kind of what informed me when I started doing the Organ Grinder's Monkey. I was using a lot of kind of, it was the time as well where you could just again, with the advent of music happening on computers, you can just download stuff. You can download effects and instruments and use them, and you put everything in the computer, and you can, the possibilities are literally endless. So you can just do whatever you want. And I kind of really got into that side of things, and I was using a lot of weird glitchy plugins and stuff to just mess up the sound, because I quite like the idea of creating something cool. And then I get bored very easily. I'm very slow. It takes me a long time to see a song through from start to finish, and in that process I'm like, that's not interesting enough, I want to do something. By the end of it, you've got this weird thing which is interesting to you, and obviously you've got to remember that you want people to hear it and like it, but I just had this whole backlog of stuff where I recorded all this stuff, and that's why, like I said, when Colonel Bastard ended, I tried to finish it all and have just like a document of these are my songs. Yeah. And at the same time, I kind of rediscovered a lot of 90s, what had passed me by at the time, because we were into guitar music. Yeah, we like our guitars. Yeah. And you do have a lot of bands who get bored of guitars and go electronic and all that kind of thing. And so I didn't want to do that in a naff way, but at the same time, I was really getting into kind of the glitchy. That your Aphex Twins and your square pushers, and you kind of highly detailed, technical, crazy drum programming. It was something. It really passed me by at the time, because I can remember that I wasn't really old enough at the time to the kind of the early days of like dance music kind of were acid house, techno, and all that was kind of before I really got to the age of sort of my early teens, when when you really started to discover music. So that kind of passed me by, and I remember all this glitchy weird music coming out and thinking, I don't get it. No, it's dance music that you can't dance to. So like, what's the point? A Luddite kind of position of like, I don't understand. Appreciating the technical mastery that went into creating that, but just not getting it. Yeah. And then I remember my sister, I was home at my mum's one Christmas holiday, and she brought home a copy of Drugs, I don't know how to pronounce it, by Aphex Twin. Yeah. And there's one track on there, track 2 on the first CD, called Vord Husband. They've got weird Cornish names, because obviously he's from the southwest. Yeah. And I remember kind of just like, so I was laying down on the sofa and listening to this, and I was like, God damn it, this makes sense. It's amazing. It's the thing of, again, you hear this kind of music for the first time, something that's new, and you think, oh, that's kind of random, it's whatever. And it suddenly kind of clicked with me, where it's like, he's doing such a clever thing here. He's programming, he's got a beat, and it changes in every bar. Yeah. It's not random. He's changing one thing or two things or three things. And I remember listening to that track on loop, and like every time thinking, oh, that's good. Oh, that's clever. Oh, that's clever. And then it got to the point, like, every time you think, so he leads the listener down a path, like you think you know what the next, he'll establish a pattern and then change it, and you think, oh, and that's going to change to this, and it'll do something else. And it's like, this is really clever. And I started getting into all of that kind of weird electronic music. And I realised another reason why I wasn't understanding it is because it kind of flips a lot of the natural sort of conventions of music. Again, when you learn to make music, you learn kind of sort of basic rules. Again, so if you're in a band, the drummer keeps things steady. Yeah. Guitar players, the lead guitarist can't solo while the singer's singing, and you learn these kind of conventions, and then you learn to break them. Yeah. And what I realised with these bands, these artists, they turned it completely upside down. So I always remember my dad talking to me about how Jimi Hendrix, the Hendrix Experience worked, because they had these virtuoso. Jimmy was a genius guitarist. The the drummer, was it Mitch Mitchell?
I don't know.
He'd be going around the kit doing loads of crazy stuff. Hendrix would be kind of soloing, and he'd say, look, this should be a mess, but it's not, because that bass player, he's keeping it simple. You know, he's going, he's locking it down.
Yeah.
In your traditional band setup, the drummer's locking things down, and and that lets other stuff happen on top. I suddenly realised with all these weird experimental electronic artists, what they were doing, or what they're doing on songs that I really liked. There's a song by Square Pisher called "A Journey to Redom," and it's got this really lovely melodic synth line, on the bass, and these other elements come in, and it's very simple. So that's what locks the track down, and that's what allows the drums to go absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So I was really wanting to, I was really getting into this music and wanting to make this. I was like, I can combine mad drums with, the guitar parts, lyrics, blah blah. I'm gonna join this together. I'm gonna make something new. And I did it, and it didn't work. It sounded horrible. It's like just random noise all the time. And it's like you've got to decide what you're gonna keep simple and what's gonna be the hook. What's going to be with these guys? They have a simple hook, and then the drums becomes the lead instrument almost. It's kind of, they do these crazy manipulations with it. And I was like, at the same time, again, I was finishing all my songs, and then this is when I lived in Cambridge. I sent a message to one of these Cambridge message boards, and I was like, I really want to make music. It's really nuts. I like songs. I also like crazy electronic music. Please suggest me some bands that do both. And it's like there's I want to rip them off, basically. So there's obvious bands that have kind of made that journey. You've got like Radiohead, the classic example where they, they've done 3 albums and then they decided, look, we're getting bored of, we've set up our sound, and now we're gonna do something different. And a lot of bands fall foul of that, and they try something different, and then they alienate their fan base, and then they have to come back to what they're used to, and it's because you need to do that in a very, again, I didn't want to be too kind of, don't want to kind of like appropriate something, and not understand it. So you have to kind of immerse yourself in that sound and understand it completely. Yeah. So that you can kind of create something that, combine and create something that's hopefully a bit new and a bit different. So I've lost my train of thought again. I discovered, so I'd written this post, and somebody suggested a band called the No Twist, or the Not Twist, or I don't know how to pronounce it. They're a German band who I'd never heard of before. And they've become a massive influence on me, because they started out, I think they're quite a heavy band, or almost like a metal band, or in the early 90s, or punk. And their sound gradually kind of mellowed over the years. And then they brought on new members, one of whom was a producer. It's called Console, and he does like really clever electronic kind of manipulations. And they did an album that was suggested to me called Neon Golden, and I've sent you the link to that as well. And it's just a brilliant album. It's so well produced. It's songs and melodies and all the stuff that traditionally I like about music. I want to hear a bit of guitar, a bit of vocal, a fun tune to sing along to. But it has this, just the production is just so perfect. It's there's weird little sounds coming in and out. There's weird sort of distorted drums, but not in a way that's distracting, not in a way that messes up what's already there. Yeah. And that kind of crystallized for me. It's like this, when I record music, this is kind of what I want it to do. I want it to have like inventive kind of weird experimentation and everything, but also with a sort of
song core almost. Yeah,
remaining a traditional kind of. So that band was really important to me. At the same time, Three Trapped Tigers.
Yeah, love a bit of Three Trapped Tigers.
A bit later, and they're amazing because they're, they've always in their initial interviews described their sound as what would happen if you combined Aphex Twin with a hardcore band. Or,
yeah.
And they just did it. it's amazing. You've got 3 supremely talented musicians, a complete mastery of their instruments. So the keyboard player, guitarist, and drummer. Yeah. They can rock out, with the best of them. That they do these intense kind of instrumental kind of post rock, but really hard. They've got an electronic element. So I remember going to some of their gigs the first time I saw them, and obviously they set up with the drummer Adam Betts kind of in the centre of the stage, and the other 2 guys at the sides. You'll see people at every one of their gigs standing at the front of the stage, just staring at the drummer. Like,
that was me. That was me. It was ridiculous.
because they can kind of do weird polyrhythms and jazz and syncopations and all this. And he's also got all sorts of electronic stuff going on. And I remember watching him hitting a drum, turning round, twisting a knob, doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, this is it.
Yeah.
Like,
this is the dream.
Similar experience of the Thomas Truax thing and listening to the note twist. 3-Track Tigers. It's just like, this is amazing. This is if I could I can't get anywhere close to that because there's 3 of them and they're just genius musicians. But if I can kind of maintain that element, that mixture of different different influences, that then I'll be happy. Yeah,
no, I think it's some really interesting sort of things culminate into to make your sound. Is there anything that like when I was I think I probably like was awakened to that sort of electronica sound probably like quite a lot later than you, but like 3-Track Tigers and Square Pusher and sort of like 2003 kind of, that was like for me the beginning of finding out about those things. And so I sort of have a variety of different pedals and stuff, but for me the limitations of the equipment I had massively influenced the creativity and how I would sort of approach things. Is that the same for you? Has the limitations helped you, or
again similar to kind of the long learning process to getting my music out live and working out how to do that with technology was incorporating those kind of sounds. So again, I was like, I did the kind of the newbie kind of thing of like going online and going, how do I make music that sounds like Aphex Twin? Yeah, and it's like, oh, here's some effects that you can use, and they can make stuff sound interesting, and they're kind of, there's this effect called glitch, which I used a lot on some of my early material, and it just puts you just sequence effects over whatever audio you've got, and it cuts them up automatically, and it rearranges, it reverses, it stretches, and somebody says, put this on your drum beat, it will sound like Aphex Twin, and obviously it doesn't, because it's random. There's no substitute for when you want to make highly detailed kind of crazy sort of beats, to just getting in and editing it slowly, and just having an idea in your head, or experimenting with chopping stuff up and moving it around, and just slow. There's really no substitute to putting it together by hand. There are things that have recently come out that make that process easier. But so initially I thought, I was like, I'll play guitar and then I'll put it through these effects and it sound amazing. No, it sounded like a mess. You have to you got to kind of plan these things out a little bit. So it was kind of like learning, and again it's learning when you discover a new love musically, like you get into a new genre and you want to be inspired by that. It's doing it in a way that's kind of organic and natural. So you have to kind of, like I said, I kind of missed out on the whole kind of rave culture, and how that fed into kind of drum and bass and techno and other genres that followed onto that, and the weird kind of noisy, crazy stuff that kind of developed as well. But we have this gift of the internet. You can just go back, you can listen to an endless array of music, you can go online, look at tutorials, work out, immerse yourself in the culture after the fact. And I think you do have to immerse yourself in it and kind of internalize it. And again, it took me like years to kind of learn how to do these things, and there were lots of like weird little techniques I kind of learned. So learning how to use a sampler. A computer is a sampler, because you're putting music in it and you're moving it around, but the early kind of electronic music artists would do everything on a hardware sampler. You put like a little 6-second loop into it and chop it up, and hook that up to a hardware sequencer. And I was amazed to learn that Square Pusher's one of his early EPs, Big Loader, was all done on hardware. One sequencer and one. And I listened to it and I'm like, that's insane. I can't do that when I see it all in front of me visually on a computer screen where I can move it all around. And he made that just one pass through a sampler. It's like, geez, that is mental. So, and again, when I was kind of like listening to a lot of this music and kind of learning about, I was learning the kind of the conventions and how you mess them up. I remember watching a video online called the world's most famous 6-second drum loop, and it was this article, it was this sort of short documentary on the Amen break, which is like a famous drum loop, which kind of again, anyone who's into dance music, who's listening to me talking, is going, well, duh, yeah.
It's I don't know anything about it. Yeah, no.
It forms the backbone of like almost all jungle music.
Right.
So that those drums that you hear, they're all sampled off this record from. It's a record called Amen Brother by the Winstons. Right. And it's this like little 6-second loop, using it obviously a lot of early hip hop as well, where they'd slow the loop down, and and it all came out of using samplers and you have these all these hip hop and electronic acts who love going back to the old funk records, and you find a bit on the record where the drums are isolated, you sample that, you put it into that break beat becomes the basis of your song. And so it was learning about all this, and it was learning not to sample the Amen break and put it underneath a person singing and playing guitar, because that was like probably the naffest thing you can ever do. A lot of those early songs that I was finishing off after Kind of Bastard finished, they were written on guitar. They were designed for a band. Yeah. But I kind of messed around with them, and I was experimenting with stuff. It's like, what if I replace these natural sounding drums with a drum machine? Well, obviously it sounds awful because you've got all these rock guitars, you've got a drum machine, and you have to think very hard about how the different elements fit together. Yeah. And again, the early days of computing, of using doing music on computers, there are a lot of limitations there, because there are a lot of, you have a sound and you're trying to make it happen, and you're kind of, if I program some electronic drums in, it will sound amazing, and it doesn't. It sounds awful, and you learn slowly. And I mean, kids coming into music now on computers, they've got Ableton Live, which is an amazing piece of software designed, and I should use that, but I don't. I still use a standard left to right sequencer and use kind of looping effects within that. Yeah. But I probably should have learned to use Ableton by now. I assumed I'm so stuck in my ways.
I assumed that was what you used, actually. I thought that was. I assumed you would. It was. Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't. I started trying to use it. It was. I downloaded a demo of it, and this was at the time where obviously. When I was at school and people started getting music programs, everybody would share CDs with all the cracks on them. The illegal software. You share it around and learn to use it. Our mate Rob always had these great discs that had all the effects, all the software on it, and you wouldn't learn to use any of it. You'd stick it all on your computer. It'd mess it up because riddled with kind of viruses. So at the time, I was kind of trying to work out how to do the Organ Grinder's Monkey. I was trying to learn to use software properly, and I kind of drew a line under all the illegal stuff. And I thought, right, I'm gonna buy software that I want to use. I know what works now, so I'm gonna delete all that crap, because it's very much frowned upon in it's sort of online communities where people go, oh, can I download the latest version of Cubase, please? Can you show me that? It's just it's not the done thing. So I had a sequencer that I used called Traction. Yeah. Which is really good. It's really easy to learn, and I used that for a while. And then that was what I did all my first set of songs on, and I was trying to work out if I could use that live, and I couldn't, because it wasn't particularly well programmed in terms of that was when you started getting dual core processors and things on laptops, and it just wouldn't work well at the because you need to use it at low latency. So that's the time that it takes the sound to go into the computer and come back out. That takes a lot of processing power, and the software just wasn't. It was great for recording, but it couldn't do it quick enough to use it live. It glitch and stutter up, and not in a nice way. I like things to be glitching, sorry, but
intentional glitching.
It would be impossible. So I did look at Ableton, and I just couldn't get my head around it. It was just like, I'm just so used to the tape recorder style. Yeah. That software, you press record, you record something, you put another track, you record that, and eventually I discovered this great plugin. Effect called Mobius Looper, right? And that's what I use live. So I have a song. I think when you use Ableton, I might be wrong, but you have a loop going round, and it loops a certain length, right? And then you have elements in there, and you bring them in and out, or you have. Actually, I don't know how it works.
No, I don't.
Completely wrong.
Yeah, I don't.
So I do it. I have a song that has a start and an end point. Yeah. And it plays through the drums, and then within that I use this looper where I can hit a pedal here, it will record it from there to there, and then it will carry on playing it back. So and the looper itself has different tracks in it that you can put different elements on. It has sort of effects that you can trigger from your MIDI pedal. Yeah. That song Feckless, where I just record random bits in over the stuff I've already recorded completely randomly, and it kind of just it creates a nice noise, I hope. It kind of beautiful madness.
It is massively one of the things I was wondering about. I suppose it's not something that we will know really, but like watching it, I didn't understand until I watched your video explaining how you did it. I'm fairly, I mean, I'm not massively, but I'm fairly tech savvy, and I was sat imagining how you would do it, and I didn't get anywhere near the level of complication that you put into it. I wonder whether or not the crowd
again
appreciate it.
And if they don't, I think that's a failure on my part, because as I was saying, like as somebody who's using technology and trying to use it in sort of new and interesting ways as much as you can. If you've got that disconnect again with what you're doing, and people can't tell, oh, when I hit that pedal, that's happening.
Yeah, that's
something I'm constantly working on. So like, I need it to be. There are songs where I've got so many different things being triggered from the foot pedal that I can't. Some of it has to happen automatically. Yeah, and that's something that kind of pains me a little bit, because it breaks the thing of wanting to do it all live and wanting it to be. Yeah. If people don't know what you're doing as you do it, then you might as well be playing over backing tracks, because they might, it's they can't see. And that's kind of why I made those videos. I did some YouTube videos where I put the video of me playing inside the software and had the looper showing, so you could see and put a load of notes on it. But I think if you have to sit down and explain too much what you're doing, you're probably not doing it right. So
right. Yeah.
It's something I'm constantly aware of and kind of working on to kind of get to a situation. I mean, to use a daft example, Ed Sheeran had the same problem when he headlined Glastonbury. People on Twitter going, he's playing over backing track.
Yeah.
And he gets up on stage and he plays his acoustic guitar. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I've got a lot of respect for one guy getting up, headlining Glastonbury with an acoustic guitar
on his own and a loop pedal.
And it's just like, but even then, to me, it's obvious what's going on there. He plays a bit, he records it, plays it out, plays over it. But people, again, you're sort of layman, bloke in the street is looking at going, he's cheating. Yeah. And he's not. He's really clever. Quite clever what he's doing. And I'm sort of doing a similar thing, but just pushing it all through a computer and doing extra things. It's a challenge.
What do you think? If you were to imagine yourself 5 years from now, how would you hope to be able to combat that? How is there anything that you think I know it's a difficult question, because I suppose it's like, if you could do it, you would probably start doing it now, and we're talking about the future of magic technology. But is there anything that you is on your dream list of ways that you could sort of combat that disconnect?
I think I just need to work better at structuring the song so that it's obvious what I'm doing. I mean, what I tend to do again when I go on stage, because I don't use the monitors, these wedges that sit at the front of the stage. Yeah. If one of those is in front of my foot pedal, I'll always move it to the side so people can at least see I'm doing stuff, and that he's pressing that button, it's making his guitar do that. He's doing this. But it's just a case of writing with that in mind. Yeah. Kind of as well as writing the songs with it being able to play live. Write it with being able to, so people know what you're doing as you do it. Yeah. And that is really hard. It's massively difficult. I did experiment at one point. I bought a tiny little MIDI keyboard, and the plan was to Velcro it onto my guitar and play bass lines like this, and then play the guitar. And I just thought, that's going to be awful. I'm going to look like some kind of keytar wielding 80s. And I mean, I think it's a problem like a lot of electronic arts come across. Like I said, I don't like seeing someone behind a laptop and doing stuff. If you're going to use Ableton, get a controller so people can see your sort of you're playing. Yeah. And what you're doing.
Because I was watching
affecting the sound. It's
was it Tim Exile who who had the basically what I watched was him playing, and he was sort of just running around twisting knobs. And is that the guy that does the plugin that you like?
Yeah, so he's the guy that writes a lot of the because he kind of invented his entire live setup. Wow. Including the the plugins that he uses to run it. Obviously not the hardware. He's got these kind of controllers, these knobs and things and faders that he can manipulate as he does it. But he wrote his own sort of looper. Yeah. There's a program called Reactor. which is also by Native Instruments, and that's one where you build your own synth from the smallest elements. So it emulates like almost not well, maybe it does. I don't know what level it goes down to, but you have these little components that you can put together, possibly down to the level of voltage, and actual you build a virtual synth in this virtual environment, and you can do almost anything in it. If you know how it works, you can do that. So he's got this thing which he calls the flow machine, which is just built on a reactor patch that he wrote. And he's got like a little launch pad or a set of pads where he can hit it and record. But when you see him, that everything he's doing is 100% on the fly. So it's where I've got a few pre-recorded elements that kind of introduces that level of doubt. Oh, well, what is he playing, and what's come up with the backdrop? What I love about Tim Exile is that everything, he kind of beatboxes a bit into the mic and sings a bit and kind of builds up a track, plays a bit of a bass line on the keyboard, does some effects, puts some reverb, and just creates a track out of nothing. And again, that would be kind of an ultimate aim.
No, sorry, go on.
Like I said, I've got the sort of limitation where I don't drum. So I don't, I can program drum parts, I can pull them apart and put drums together and create these. And again, the drum sound I want is a complex, detailed sound. I don't want to stand there on stage and go boom, 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 boom. And then play over that and it being really kind of static and boring. So it's which is why again, like one of the reasons I called it the Organ Grinder's Monkey and not my name or not Ben Garnett and the something was that at some point that there's always the option to get other musicians in and it can still be that project. But I could get a live bass player or a drummer and teach them all my mad parts. Listen to this and do it, please, drummer. I don't know, can you?
I think that would be really interesting for you. I think that'd be a massively interesting thing to see. I totally understand why it doesn't happen. It's a big commitment, isn't it, to train up a load of people.
And part of the reason I did this is that I didn't really want to be in a band again. I wanted to be, I couldn't imagine being in a band with anyone other than my best friends. And that wasn't an option at that point. So it was like, well, can I make this happen on my own? Can I go out there and play something and do something that is valid, that works, and and has a performance aspect to it. And I think you see that with a lot of solo artists, actually, people who start solo. Another one of kind of my early influences was Patrick Wolf. And his early stuff had a kind of folk / electronic element to it. His first album had some great tracks on it, like A Boy Like Me, Blood Beat, stuff like that, where it's all kind of electronic-y weirdness, and he was singing, doing this clever stuff. And I tried to find live performances of what he was doing, and he was doing that. He was just with a laptop and singing. Which is great and it's fine, but as he's developed as an artist, he's got a full band. He goes out and he plays with the band, because it's like, I don't want to say that's a cop-out. Oh, you should have carried on and you should have found a way to make it work. But it's just a natural progression. You've got these songs, you go out and play them. People want to see a performer, performing live, creating, the art, whatever it is, in front of their eyes. And that's a point that you want to try and reach. And a lot of musos obviously will turn their nose up at people using too much equipment. And like I say, I'm not a purist. I'm not. I'm happy to. If I can get to the end result through whatever weird way to get there, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. I'm not going to say, well, I can't do that because it goes against the rule.
Absolutely.
It's cheating, or so it's always kind of a fine line between sort of creating something in the moment, but trying to make that happen on your own and trying to make it happen in a way that makes sense and connects with an audience and to come and see it again. But you do see a lot of solo artists who start, and I like their early stuff. I like the sort of the initial embryonic kind of stage of it being interesting, and I get disappointed when I find people and they've just formed a band. It's like, oh, don't form a band. I need to copy what you were doing. Like, I need to find a way of doing that cool kind of weird little thing, which is why I love Thomas Truax. I absolutely adore, because he's just
would you
built his own band.
Would you consider doing like building these like bespoke creations? Because I think that would be quite engaging, wouldn't it? That'd be quite interesting. Or is it just too? It's not your wheelhouse.
It's not my bag. I don't have the engineering skills to do that. And the other thing is when I was kind of working out my live set, I wanted it to be as portable as possible.
Yes.
So just
Yeah.
a laptop, an audio interface in a wheelie case, guitar on my back. I don't drive,
No.
so I can't load amps and stuff into cars. I if I play outside of Brighton, I catch a train and go, which is just again making a rod for my own back. It's a ridiculous way to. It's why I've never toured. I just do like odd gigs here and there. I should learn to drive and actually learn to sort of get my music out there a bit better, because it is very, like I said, I'm very amateurish in the whole promotion side of thing and the whole.
I suppose it's quite hard, isn't it? It's quite hard to take that next step, isn't it? It's a lot of. It's a big. I mean, it's like a big time commitment. So, do you have like a community of people that watch? I mean, I don't know. Do you have like? Is there like a sort of a group of followers? Because I know you had. We haven't talked about it, and it is really interesting. You did a remix, and it got like it got really successful, didn't it? It was quite.
No, I wouldn't call that success.
But like it got a light shined on it, didn't it? And it was you created an evil thing.
I did a bad thing. I used my skills for evil. I did a mashup of Ed Sheeran's "Shape of You" and the Pixies' "Where Is My Mind," and an online magazine, The Line of Best Fit, which I read quite a lot. And I'd love them to find me as an artist and write about me. They said we are on a lonely rock spinning through space, and this is proof that God is dead. I was quite happy. They didn't put my name on it; just said someone has created this thing, and it was like, technically, it was it was quite a skillful thing, but conceptually, it was just the devil's work. Who even wants to hear that? How
do we combine heroin and cocaine together to make the ultimate?
But it's ironic that like just a little joke thing I did that I stuck online. Kind of almost became. It didn't go viral or anything like that, but it got the most, thousands more YouTube hits than any other video I've uploaded, and it was being written about by magazines in Spain and Japan, because you can see where the links have come from on YouTube. You can look at the analytics, and I was like, the Spanish loved it. They were like, music is lovely. It's amazing. It's like, oh, okay, that's nice.
Is that ever a temptation for you to follow the dark arts and do?
It was one of the things I initially, when you talk about remixing, I mean that was a silly mashup, but one of the things I wanted to do initially as well was remix other artists. I did that with a few local bands that we did some remix swaps, and that became part of one of my EPs that I put on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. But I had this idea that maybe to get a bit more attention, I'd remix proper bands. I did Alt J did a competition remix, remixing what's that song? Breeze Blocks.
Right.
I did a remix of that, and that again got more plays on my SoundCloud than anything else. But that takes a lot of time, and it's just taking away from the time that you could be writing your own stuff. And
absolutely,
it didn't really go. And I did a remix of another guy that I did a gig with, a guy called Meow Meow from Glasgow. I did a gig with him in Brighton. I got the sports slot for him, and I remixed one of his tracks. But I think when you do that for someone, you say, "Hey, I like that track? Can I remix it?" Unless you've already got those kind of contacts and things, it's like you send that to that person and they go, "Well, I don't know what to do with it now." It's like, if they really love it, I'm sure they put it on a B-side, and maybe I'd get a publishing credit or something. I didn't expect any of that to happen. He said, "Oh, maybe we'll use it at some point," and then nothing happened. But that's fine. I mean, he's in Franz Ferdinand now. Actually,
wow,
he's their new keyboard player. So
awesome.
I keep tabs on him on Twitter. I'm like, I did a gig with that guy. He's gonna use my remix now. So
are you sure?
So that kind of it's something I do, and I've recorded friends' bands as well, and it's always fun to kind of play with their material and kind of remix it and stuff, and just kind of create. I thought I could create a community sense that way, but by kind of all the bands I've recorded have broken up. I don't know, it's like a kiss of death kind of thing. Hey, I'll record you for free, and if you like it, maybe we can get a thing going. Maybe you can recommend me to other people. So, now we're not doing.
We died.
Sorry, you killed us.
The recording process was the finale.
But the engaging with the community is something I've really struggled with again, because I like I say I'm on my own. I'm very slow. It takes me months. I'll work on a track. I'll happily work on a track for years, and I'll enjoy the process like massively.
But
but actually thinking ahead to, like, you know, I should do a set of gigs, I should do an EP, I don't plan in a very good way. And when we were in the band, when we were doing Colonel Bastard in Cambridge, you know, it seemed to happen naturally.
Yeah.
And I thought it would again. So I don't know if it's kind of one of those things where, you know, when you're in a gang and it's, you know, it's easier. Maybe it's a different stage of life. So, like, you know, we just finished university, so you've got a group of friends already. They'll all come to your first gig. You know, Cambridge is a bit of a smaller place, so it's easier to get to know all the promoters there. And you know, I was quite sad when we broke up, because we just got to the point where we were quite known locally. You know, we could hire out a venue in Cambridge, fill it up, put on a really good show, get bands in. We would get to the point, you know, we could get bands in from other towns, do gig swaps, and it felt like it was kind of going somewhere. Our drummer had just learned to drive. One of us could drive. we could go to other towns. We did our first gig in London. It was really exciting. And then and then he kind of left, and I was like, I was like, well, that's okay. We'll just do that again on my own. Yeah. But it's hard. I'm naturally quite an introverted person, so I find it hard to do. I'm happy recording. I'm happy when I'm on stage, and, you know, everything's planned out. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. The scariest moments for me are the moments in between songs when you have to think of something to say.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And the moments of introducing myself to people, introducing myself to promoters. I don't make a good first impression. I find it hard to talk about what I do. I find it hard to explain it conceptually to begin with. You know, I'm in a band with my band with my laptop.
Yeah, it is
make
difficult.
Electronic music, and, you know, I think promoters struggle finding where to put me. I get put on a lot of rock nights. So I'll be on supporting a couple of rock bands, which is fine, because it's, you know, I play the guitar on that. But it's, you know, I'll either be the weird guy on the rock lineup, or the pop guy on the weird electronic night. So I play this. There's a night in Brighton called Spirit of Gravity, which is a brilliant monthly kind of local. You know, it's the home of live electronica in Brighton, and there's lots of groups like there's the Beat Collective and other things, and I go to some of these nights sometimes, and, you know, you do get all the kind of laptop artists and the people doing, you know, using technology to create this kind of weird music and free improv bands and stuff like that. Yeah. And the guy who runs that, Jeff, he always puts me on his pop nights. So he's like, oh, we're going to do a pop night. We'll have a few, you know. So I get to kind of like be I'm singing tunes, and, you know, I'm the kind of. But yeah, I kind of fall in between. Worlds a little bit, which in one way is kind of ideal, because it's like, oh, I've got my own niche. But at the same time, you do need to kind of market yourself somehow, somewhere, and, you know, it's.
I think there's a lot to be said for being different and not for. Yeah, I think there is, though. I think one of the things that's happened after having spoke to all these people doing this podcast is, one of the things people have said is, be true to yourself. Be true to what you want to do, because if you love it and you are, you know, true and your heart is pure, you know, you will find people that like-minded people that like what you do, and you will be their thing. You will be their thing that they love. And in the same way that, you know, we found all these other bands like Free Trap Tigers and all that kind of stuff, you know, they're not anyone, you know, they must have struggled to get that place, mustn't they?
They're never going to be like a mainstream act, but they'll always have their following. That what you say, it reminds me of something Matt always used to say. Again, Matt Arundel, he always used to say, there's somebody out there, whatever you do, there's somebody out there for you who is going to be your number one fan. And your job as an artist is to find them, or, you know, to get your music to them. You know, there's no point following trends and doing this and that and the other. Just, like you say, do what you do. And again, similar to what I was saying earlier, where if you want to take different influences, you know, kind of absorb them fully and, you know, combine them and make your thing, but do it sort of true to yourself and all of that, and try and find that guy who's going to like it. Find that person who's going to put your music on and go,
that's amazing. This is mind-blowing.
That's what I've been searching for my entire life.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Okay, well, I've got a couple last questions. How do you kind of stay creative, and how do you stay fresh and keep reinventing what you do and not find yourself plumbing the same depths? Is that ever something that you sort of think, how do I keep moving just slightly forwards?
I don't think it's a problem that much. I mean, I'm influenced a lot as much by the music I listen to as the tools I use to create it. So there's always a new thing to learn and a new thing to do. And like I said, after I'd finished that first set of songs and created a discipline of finishing things, because that was always my problem before. I could never finish a song.
No.
Now I'm not so worried about that, and I've always got little things on the go. I've always got more ideas than I've got time to spend on it, to be honest.
Excellent.
Like I said, it's a hobby, so I've got a full-time job, but it works around my life, and I'm never happier than when I've got a week off just to sit at home on the computer in my room, just tinkering away and learning new tricks and tools and techniques. Just go online and watch a few tutorials, and, learn a new effect.
Yeah.
Buy a new thing and learn how to use it, and you just create these things and they kind of spin off in weird directions. I think when you start as a band or a musician, like a lot of times when you start, like whatever you do, the possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah. And
then you work out what's good for you and what works, and you kind of get into a groove. And you're like, if we play that and you play that, that's a good sound. And you start off totally shit. You slowly develop a sound that works for you, and then you try and find a way to either expand that or kind of tear it up and start again. Doing the Kid A as Radiohead did. For me, the way I started this, it was already quite open, possibilities anyway. If anything, it was trying to find a way to trim it down to one thing that made sense, so that I'm not just creating loads of, because whatever music you listen to is experimental and weird as it is, there does need to be an identity there. So I kind of struggle sometimes. I have too many ideas that go in different directions, and it's getting that down to actually a core of stuff that I think is good that I can work on. And there's always stuff for me to work on. So it's like, if anything, I'm time poor, and I always have ideas. But
that's great, really, isn't it? That's a good way to be, because as I've said numerous times throughout this podcast, the real underlying reason that I did it, that created this entire thing, was because I stopped being able to write songs. So I was curious. I'm just curious what other people's. I don't know. I just wondered how it happens. I wonder I kind of wonder where creativity comes from. I wonder, like, what is the secret? Is there a secret to it? Is there something you can do that, like, inspires it? It cultivates that, like, creative attitude. And for everybody, it's been different, isn't it? A lot of people have said it's having time to do stuff and ruminate ideas and.
I mean, there's a lot of techniques out there, and a lot of the guys who've done this podcast have explained, there's things like writing down everything you do, no matter what it is, and just having it there so you can come back to it and work on it. Yeah. Combining different things, combining different ideas, whether, doing something, even if it's not good, and seeing it through, finishing it. Experimenting, doing something in a different way, saying, can I write a song with one chord? Can I, just doing flexing your muscles, even if it hasn't got an outcome that you can see. Yeah. Just kind of, sort of throwing things at it. And
I like the idea of imposing rules to creativity, like you said, like doing a one chord. I remember Matt. We've talked about Matt a fair bit. Matt saying something like he wanted to write a waltz, and so he forced himself to write a waltz, and like one that was like, I don't know, using some musical thing, like just tonal movements, or I don't know. I can't remember. My musical knowledge is poor, but
same.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It is really interesting.
For me, it's usually learning a new technique on the computer. But like I said, if you're learning a new, study music theory a bit, because my musical knowledge is quite poor. And like, remember I discovered harmony for the first time, or trying to use the circle of fifths to work out where a song in a certain key should go next. And I'm still very poor at that. I have to look it up online and go, oh, what key am I in? What chords am I playing? And that kind of thing. There are infinite kind of number of ways you can kind of kickstart yourself. I think the frustration a lot of the times comes from when you are like sort of a creative person or songwriter or whatever. When you write a song that's good, when it just happens, it almost feels like you're discovering something that's already there. Yeah. Like sometimes you'll sit down and it will just happen. You just go, here's some chords. Oh yeah, here's. and you can hear where it's going to go next, and it goes there, and you've got a song in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why doesn't that happen every time?
Yeah.
How do I make that happen? And the truth is, I don't think it really does for anyone. Everybody has those purple patches where they suddenly write a load of good songs, or they suddenly come up, that creative kind of outpouring or whatever. And then you have these kind of barren periods where you're just scrabbling around.
Yeah.
But in those sort of barren periods, if you're, like I say, kind of like sort of just developing those techniques, or flexing those sort of creative muscles, or what a naff content.
No, but I get it. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So that you're building up. I've got a whole folder on my computer of just rough demos that I've made, and in the old days that used to really upset me, because it was like, I need to finish everything I do. But now it's just like a bank of material that I can go back to. If I've got a song I get stuck in, I'm like, oh, that might work with that, or that might work with that, or maybe it doesn't work, but it still sounds cool. Yeah. Or and just sort of having a kind of backlog of ideas that you can draw on when you're stuck.
I've got 9 folders of about 100. I've got this repository of all my. I've got a jam. So basically, when I used to write a lot more and play a lot more, I have a Jam Man, and it's got it's not an SD card, but it's like a whatever. It's like a memory card that comes in and out of it. So I would just record all of these like 16-second loops that I would just build. I would basically spend my time building like soundscapes and just silly little loops and looping up stuff, and just doing all that kind of stuff. And I have got this 900 fucking huge folder of just like 16 seconds of music.
That's great though. Just go back to it, find a few that you like, and
flesh them out.
I think the hardest thing there is like you can have an idea. If you've got an idea that's fully formed in your head and is kind of long, but you haven't got the detail, it's quite fun to fill that in.
Yeah.
If you've got a short idea and you don't know where it's going to go next, but you build up this lovely little short idea, that can be hard, because then it's like, oh, what happens next? Yeah. I've got this thing that's perfectly formed, but it's only this long.
It's like 1 bar long.
How do I make it this long? How do I write the next bit? I think I often get stuck there. I'll have one really good bit, like an amazing verse, or I just can't find the chords or the next bit for the chorus. I think those are the times where you have to do that technique of just forcing yourself through it. Just kind of not worrying about ruining the little thing, because the little things are only going to sit there forever and do nothing. So get it out there, get it done.
The other thing I often experience is that, like, living up to my own standard of like, I've written something that I really like, and then I go, well, how do I write anything that even touches that's as good as that? Like, I can't make that happen. So it's a funny old thing, and it will be, and I suspect probably by the time I finish doing this podcast, I might start writing some songs.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, I might.
I'll be interested to hear them as well. I'll be interested to hear. We were talking before we came in, all the stuff that you recorded at my dad's. And,
there's a lot of old stuff out there. I'm classically an unfinisher.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible. I'm good at starting. Love starting stuff. Terrible at locking it down.
And I've been through those cycles. So like I said, when I started this, I forced myself to finish 10 songs. I just like, let's get 10 songs done. Yeah. And then that gave me the kind of confidence that, okay, I can finish anything now. It doesn't matter what it is. I know I can probably finish it. So then that gave me the confidence to start a lot of ideas, not knowing where they were going. Because once I'd got that little core of material, I was kind of almost scared to start something, because I wanted to finish everything I started. Yeah. And then I kind of relaxed that a bit and was like, well, I know I can finish stuff if I really put my mind to it. So let's see where all these ideas go, and then I'll finish the best ones, and the stuff can remain there as material that I can come back to and use. It's
never wasted, is it? It's never wasted.
It's not. I mean, there's drum parts in some of the songs that I play live now that came from like random little demos that I recorded a while ago, and you do worry if anyone's going to notice that, like, because some of the demos that I've put online, it's like I did like this little mini album, and some of those drum parts are, they're in the later songs, but who's going to notice? No,
it's only people like us that even think those things, isn't it? It's like those. Yeah. It's only in your own mind that I absolutely agree. Just to wrap things up, is there any I kind of like to try and give people an opportunity to shine a light on any other creatives or unknowns that they like, or you would like to sort of promote for other people. Is there any friends or anything that you like that no one knows about?
I mean, I will talk about. Obviously, I've talked about a few of my kind of musical heroes, Thomas Truax and Tim Exile. I mean, I wouldn't describe those as unknowns because they're both far better known than I am. But you know, if people haven't heard of them, you know, check them out. There's a guy when I used to live in Cambridge, and if you lived in Cambridge and you like music and you follow music, you will know him because he's a local legend. His name is Pete Well, his artist name is but everyone calls him Pete and he's again like a massive influence on me because he's a solo performer. He's almost non-musical in what he does. It's not performance poetry because I know he hates being described as that. But he's the most prolific sort of artist musician I've ever come across. All his songs are like a minute long. So when he does a gig, the bits where he talks between the songs are longer than the songs themselves, and he'll just do like 50 songs in a gig. He's apparently got an archive of over 4,000 songs that he's written and recorded over the last sort of 20 years. But it's weird because he is like a local sort of character in Cambridge, and I've met him a lot of times to talk to him, but I find it difficult to talk to him because I'm so in awe of what he does. He's just got this kind of genius. All his songs are kind of like they take in so much kind of religion, politics, self-loathing. He's built a world that's his, and you listen to his songs and it's just like they're funny, they're clever, they're silly, they're kind of he doesn't play an instrument, but he's recorded 1,000 songs just building up these sound collages on computer, and he just most of his not early gigs, but when I first saw him, he would just sing over a mini disc, and that was fine. It's there's no reason that isn't artistically valid. It was because he's got such an engaging kind of persona, and he's very intelligent chap.
That's good.
And he's and he's been doing it forever. That's the kind of thing that I hope is that I had a chat with him when I did a gig in Cambridge a while ago, and I was like, I haven't been noticed yet, but if I do this forever, somebody will notice me at some point. And he said, well, I thought that, but no musicians ever give up. You won't be unique in that. It's like we never give up.
It's an illness, isn't it?
And there's Brighton bands I really like as well. I don't feel like I'm part of the scene in Brighton because it moves so quickly and it's kind of diverse. It's kind of hard to kind of get a foothold in that, and that's something I've kind of struggled with since moving from Cambridge, where it's kind of a bit smaller. You get to know a few people. Brighton it's brilliant because you can always go out to a gig and see something, and but it's so fast moving. I find when I send my stuff around to promoters every kind of year when I've got some new material, it's a different group of people because like people move on to London a lot, and I find it hard to keep up with the scene. I'm so slow. I'm getting old. but there's bands that do kind of similar things to what I do. But there's a band called Soccer 96. I did one of my earliest gigs was supporting them, and they're great. They're a keyboard player. He plays all analog synths. It's kind of old school keyboard player and drummer. He does a lot of looping, but it's all guitar pedals, so it's all live hardware. They do some awesome stuff. A little bit kind of, some of it's a bit computer game sounding, some of it's a bit kind of more club dance sound, but they're great. There's another pair called Speak Galactic. They're brilliant. Drummer and a guitarist. He plays guitar and sings, but he often stands in front of a kind of a bank of synths and manipulates those as well. He's in another band called Merlin Tonto, who he does lots of kind of like analog loops with a drummer and bass player. Those guys are great. A guy that I did a gig at one of the Spirit of Gravity nights. He came up and did my controller thing on the Sonic song, and was just laughing all the way through, which is making me laugh, and like I could barely play. But he played at that night as well. He's called Inwards, and he's very good. He does a little kind of like nice. Some of his stuff, the stuff that I really like of his is it's got that kind of Aphex Twin vibe to it. Some of the softer side of Aphex, the kind of some of the stuff on the Richard D. James album, where it's kind of like gentle kind of electronica, but very detailed. It's not harsh in your face kind of drum and bass, drill and bass, and he's got. I mean, I love that, but he's kind of got and he plays live with just a set of kind of. I don't know what he does, to be honest. He's got kind of things that he manipulates, and sort of little loops coming out and sequences, and there's a lot of really creative musicians around here, and I probably haven't done them justice, but there's loads of kind of local bands that are really great, and it's a good scene.
Is there anything you would like to promote of your own?
Wow, I do have a gig. I really don't gig as regularly as I should, and it's another failure of mine. I don't engage quickly enough with the scene and get myself out there. But I do have a gig on Monday, which is at Sticky Mike's Frog Bar.
Right.
Supporting a lady called Dos Flores. So she's another sort of electronic looping musician from Cambridge.
Yeah.
And that was one of those gigs that just it's nice. I get kind of disheartened by sending my stuff out a lot of times and hearing nothing back.
Yeah.
This was one of those nice gigs that just kind of fell into my lap, because there's a guy in Cambridge who writes a music blog. He's reviewed a couple of my gigs, and he's reviewed a couple of my EPs, which like I said, I just put out on SoundCloud and SoundCloud, bad Bandcamp. So he's reviewed a few things, and he's kind of managing her now, and has organised a tour, and just emailed me and said, "Do you want to support her on the Cambridge leg?" And I was like, "Yes,
cool."
And it's nice that he's picked me specifically because it fits with what she does, so it should be quite good. I won't feel kind of out of place playing with a load of punk or metal bands or whatever kind of thing. And then I've got a CD which an EP which I put out earlier this year, which is called Blivit.
Yeah.
That's just a 3-track EP. And I'll have a new one. I've got 3 tracks that I've got recorded that I'm just mixing at the moment. It's all stuff that I'm playing live at the moment. So we're playing them all on Monday, and that will hopefully come out in the new year. I need to get all this stuff again. I need to get organised and just get this stuff distributed properly. That's really the next kind of stage for me, is kind of being a bit more. I mean, it's always been a hobby for me. It's never. A lot of the guys you've had on this podcast, I've listened to them. It's like, I should be doing that.
Yeah, well, that's it.
So it's just getting yourself, out there.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it is a lot about pimping yourself out and kind of like unashamedly
promoting.
Yeah.
I feel intensely uncomfortable doing that. And again, when we're in the band, it just felt easy. It just felt natural, because there's 4 of you. You're not saying
the focus isn't on you, is it?
You're not saying I'm so good, I'm great. You're like, we've got this thing, and quite proud of bands are they're more than the sum of their parts, and you can say, oh yeah, come see us. And there's 4 of you doing it, so your circle of friends and contact
4 times bigger
automatically big. Being like I said earlier, sort of coming out of sort of like a uni environment or a college sort of school, as we formed at school. You've got a big group of friends, so it's trying to recreate some of that somehow.
Maybe that could be your goal for the next 5 years.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Just hammer that side of it.
Like I said, I get distracted because I'm intensely happy just being at home recording music, and I quite happily just record forever. Yeah. But I know that you do need that little part of you that you want somebody else to hear it, and so it's you've got to do the other side of it and get it out there.
Absolutely, because don't end up like Nick Drake. It's like like Swansea played like 7 times or something live.
All right.
Nick Drake's like one of the greatest.
I know of him, but I didn't realize that.
I think he like played like 7 times live, and never ever he hated all of that stuff. But he was like just this wonderful, beautiful musician who just created this incredible music that nobody sort of heard. And then like 30 years later, everyone was like, wow, Nick Drake's amazing. And
I love that idea. I love the idea of being the outsider artist, the person.
Well, he ended up
the cliche of not being appreciated in your own lifetime, then somebody discovers,
Yeah, I know. Well, there is something really romantic about that, but it's so much more enjoyable having been discovered while you were alive.
Yeah, you're right. It's a nice idea, but don't do that.
Don't end up dead.
I'm obsessed with the story of the guy who was like a janitor, and he wrote this epic novel that was kind of I can't remember his name. I'd have to Google it, but he he lived on his own. He went out to work every day, and he'd written this kind of epic fantasy novel, which was kind of discovered upon his death. And he's kind of it's just
it's sad, isn't it? It's really sad.
Just creating something completely in isolation, and then suddenly somebody stumbling on it and going, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah, it's a very romantic idea, isn't it? It's a very romantic idea. Well, we have run over quite considerably, but it's been lovely chatting to you, Ben. No. I kept on asking questions, and time ran on. But thank you very much. It's been really lovely chatting, and we'll put loads of links at the bottom so people can follow your stuff. And you're welcome back anytime. It's been
awesome.
Yeah, it's been really nice.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And, have a good gig tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this has been the Noise Filter Podcast. That's been Garnett, and we will see you again next week. Cheerio. Goodbye. Goodbye.